All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fantastic story based on Saikat Mukhopadhyay's sci-fi adventure, Parakeet, the Ghost Island. Now, at first glance, you'd think this is just a straightforward tale about nature and science. But stick with me, because as you'll see, it spirals into a dark, supernatural thriller with a sci-fi twist that literally no one sees coming. Picture this. You've just touched down in the sunny, absolutely beautiful tropical paradise of Mauritius. You're ready for an adventure. But suddenly, an elderly, devastated local named Stephen blocks your path, shouting this frantic warning. He says his son, Roro, took a trip to Devil's Island and just vanished. Never returned. It's an intense way to start, right? This single, chilling moment instantly casts a massive shadow over the sunny backdrop and lets us know right out of the gate that this island is hiding something incredibly dark. Okay, the birdwatching expedition. Let's see how this journey begins. Our story actually starts out totally normally. We have Nil, a wildlife photographer, and Dr. Surajit, a famous ornithologist. They're heading to Mauritius to document the Rodriguez lizard owl, a bird that everyone literally thought went extinct 70 years ago. But the very first red flag pops up when they meet their local contact, Shrikanta. Now, before his own recent trip to Parakeet Island, Shrikanta was this cheerful, super talkative amateur birdwatcher. But the guy they meet, he's totally withdrawn, he's dead quiet. And weirdest of all, despite the sweltering tropical heat, he completely refuses to take off this thick red and black muffler. Then, a gust of wind blows the muffler aside for just a second, and Nil spots it. A horrific, tennis ball-sized tumor sitting right on Shrikanta's neck. It's just a deeply unsettling clue that something biological and probably terrible is going on here. Moving on to the warnings and dark legends. So the guys get a boat out to Parakeet Island, but their boatman, Jacob, flat out refuses to even step foot on the sand. Instead, he drops this 200-year-old history of doom on them. Apparently, back in 1815, a massive meteorite crashed near the island. The locals, they called it Lucifer's messenger. Soon after that crash, a British colonist named Archibald took 30 laborers to the island to clear a forest for sugarcane, and they completely vanished. 4 months later, a search party went looking for them, and what they found on a drifting steamer was straight out of a nightmare. They found the dead bodies of Archibald's entire crew completely drained of blood. Jacob says they looked like white blotting paper. Yikes. Because of that, the locals truly believe those ancient laborers were drained of blood and turned into Numai, which is a Swahili word for bloodsucker or vampire. So for 2 straight centuries, local fishermen have been convinced that immortal zombies are basically just roaming the island's white sandy beaches every night, which obviously keeps people far, far away. So, arriving at Parakeet Island, when Nil and Surajit finally step onto those pristine beaches, the absolute isolation is palpable. They are totally alone on an island untouched by modern civilization. But they quickly realize those terrifying local legends might actually be grounded in reality. They start noticing these really unsettling clues. First, there's a complete absence of any natural predators. No cats, no dogs, not even rats. Second, the native magpie birds show this unnatural, almost paralyzing fear of going anywhere near the ground. And then, the ultimate proof. They stumble upon the actual physical wreckage of a 200-year-old steamer buried in the sand. Inside, they find human bones and a gold cross engraved with the letters NA, which perfectly matches Nicholas Archibald from that 1815 timeline. So yeah, Jacob's ghost story, it actually happened. Now, despite the creeping dread and, the actual human remains, they stick to the mission. They're scientists, right? They came to document the extremely rare Rodriguez lizard owls, and they're going to do it. They set up this super clever 4-step trap. See, birds are incredibly observant, but they're terrible at math. So the guys build a camouflaged hide up in a rosewood tree. They both climb up at dusk. Then Surajit climbs down and walks away. The owls see a human leave and basically think, okay, the coast is clear, completely unaware that Nil is still hiding up there with a high-tech night vision camera ready to record them all night long. Let's look at the chilling night footage. The next morning, Nil gets back to camp, and they huddle around their laptop to review the footage. At first, it's a huge success. The owls are right there, feeding their young. But then, a heavy storm rolls in on the video, plunging the forest into this deep, deep darkness. Suddenly, the camera picks up movement. Not up in the trees, but down on the muddy forest floor below. So, what did that night vision camera actually capture? Guys, instead of wildlife, the screen lights up with this horrific image: 30 naked human figures crawling on their chests like reptiles in the dead of night. They aren't walking, they're literally slithering over the roots and mud. Nil and Surajit just watch in absolute paralyzed horror as it dawns on them. They are looking at the laborers from 1815, 200 years later, and they are still moving, still somehow alive out there in the darkness. Which brings us to revealing the alien Parasite. Knowing they can't just sit around and wait to be attacked, the men make a crazy decision to track the creatures down. They follow this awful, rotting smell all the way to the ruined 1815 barracks, totally bracing themselves for death. But then a voice calls out. They're saved by Roro, Stephen's missing son. He's very much alive, and he's hiding out with a shotgun, and Roro drops the mother of all revelations. This is the exact moment the story shifts from a creepy ghost story into pure science fiction. That meteorite from 1815, it didn't bring Lucifer. It brought extraterrestrial parasites. These parasites attach themselves directly to the human nervous system, which, on the outside, looks exactly like a large tumor on the neck. Once attached, they completely hijack the motor functions. They literally pilot the human bodies like physical vehicles. And the absolute most terrifying part of all this, the human host's mind remains completely asleep while it's being controlled. The host has absolutely no idea it's even happening. I just love how this perfectly contrasts the local folklore with the actual sci-fi reality. The locals saw these drained, bloodless bodies and obviously assumed, yep, demonic curse, Numai vampires for sure. But the biological reality is somehow even crazier. Extraterrestrial parasites crashing to Earth, just trying to survive by draining nutrients and hijacking the nervous systems of whatever poor humans happened to cross their path 2 centuries ago. Just wrap your head around this number for a second. 200. These alien parasites are so incredibly ruthlessly efficient that they have kept their human host bodies functioning, moving, and technically alive for over 200 years. The bodies are actively degrading, right? But the parasites are just forcing the physical meat to keep going century after century. And this is the aha moment that ties the whole beginning together. Remember Srikanta's thick red and black muffler in the tropical heat? Srikanta wasn't just acting weird. He was actively infected. That tennis ball tumor on his neck was literally an alien parasite trying to burrow into his spine. He managed to escape the island and get back to civilization before it could take full control of his brain, but the poor guy is slowly losing the battle. Finally, a silent, final resolution. So Nil and Surajit are sitting on the absolute truth. If they publish this, they become the most famous scientists in human history. They have high-definition video of 200-year-old alien-controlled human bodies. It's the discovery of a lifetime, but instead, they make a really poignant choice. They erase the footage. They take a vow of silence. And why? Because they know that publishing the truth would instantly trigger a massive military quarantine. You'd have alien hunters, global scientists, and literal armies swarming the island. That incredibly fragile 15-million-year-old natural ecosystem, the one keeping those rare owls alive, would be permanently destroyed. Plus, think about it. The parasites are trapped. Without new human hosts wandering onto the island, they're eventually just going to die out on their own anyway. So the men sacrifice their own fame to protect the island's ancient nature from human destruction. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final, heavy ethical dilemma to ponder. What would you do? Would you have buried the ultimate truth of extraterrestrial life to save a fragile natural ecosystem? Or would you have revealed the alien secret to the world, knowing full well it would absolutely destroy a pristine paradise? It's a wildly unforgettable end to an incredible story. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into Parakeet Island.